Today we're testing out the load capacity of these Amensolar built on the Mega Revo platform. This is the NHX 10 series. These are updated. We spent a good few number of months with these guys updating things, firmware, and we've come to a place where we think we want to be. Okay, so what we have here today is, you can see the weather. It's snowing outside. This particular unit is mounted outdoors over here. We have the under the solar array awning over here, which is like a 15 kilowatt solar array awning, which is kind of partially shaded. And we have got 5 series strings coming in, and these come into combiner boxes. Now this is a 4x2 combiner box. All right, so we've got 2 parallel strings in input number 2, 1 series string in input number 1. As you can see, the LEDs correspond, and there's our 2 outputs. So this unit's got 4 inputs. So the first output comes on this breaker, the second output from that breaker. Here are the fuses, the positive fuses. Here are the negative fuses. There's the surge protection device. There is the ground bar on top over there. These are grounded. They basically, even the frame is grounded, which is grounded to this metal chassis over here. And then we've got the 2 outputs coming through 1 gland. So that's input number 1, or the first 2 in, and you can see the drawing in the inside of the box. And then box number 2, you can see it's snowing here today. So these boxes have been outside for a long time. And then we've got input number 2, so there's the other 2 inputs, or the 2 other solar outputs. So we've got 6 panels in series. These are 575 watt bifacial panels. We've got 6 in series per string, which comes out to about 50 volts each, about just under 300 volts per input. Now this inverter, you'll see over here, it can take a total of 15 kilowatts solar input, and each input can handle 14 times 4, and the maximum short circuit current for the panels is 22 amps per string. And the independent, I get the question a lot, is that, are these inputs, is it 500 volts per input, or is it, how do you add it? It's 4 separate inputs of 500 volts each. Okay, and this is a 10 kilowatt unit. The maximum rated output power is 41 amps per phase. And the battery voltage range is 40 to 60 volts. Maximum charging current is 190 amps. And I'm standing right next to this thing. You can hear how quiet this is. I mean, literally, I can whisper next to it. It's probably the quietest inverter. And it's also outdoor rated IP65, and that's why we have it actually outdoors over here. Just maybe under a little bit of awning, but the snow can still come in from the side and sits on the top there now and again. We also have the Tigo rapid shut-off configured for this unit as well. And I'll show you some of the Tigos that we've put on these panels. And there they are over there. Now, as far as noise goes, these Tigos are probably about the noisiest thing. They give a high-pitched whine when they're busy operating, especially in partly cloudy skies like this. You can see it's snowing there right now. Those are whistling like crazy, but the inverter is actually pretty quiet. And out of this 15 kilowatt array today, we are getting, let's see how many watts of solar we're getting. We're getting 3.5, a total of 3.5 kilowatts. Now this is quite a lot of light here today. So there we can see 3.5 kilowatts. It's busy charging our battery. So the thing that everybody wants to know is, what can this inverter run? And we got a few things we want to show you. Right now we're running on silicate gel batteries, which are out in the winter over there. You can see, and we use that to charge our electric vehicle. And we're also going to use that to run and test all of the power tools here today. So we've got some heat guns over there. This is all on phase 1, that's on phase L2. We've got a compressor over here, which is the 29-gallon McGraw, and here it says 15 amps or 7.5 amps. So that's probably starting up amps and running amps, 7.5. And here we have a chop saw, which a chop saw. We're actually going to start this guy off with a locked rotor, and show you that we just basically see if the inverter handles it. And now this is a 240 volt, 120 240 volt inverter, so it's 5 kilowatts per phase. Okay, and so we're just going to be testing it as max as we can on one single phase and then on 2 phases. And this is what it looks like inside. We have our battery terminals, positive and negative. We also use this unit out here to charge our forklift batteries during the day. And that's our BMS cable that we're going to be plugging into the batteries pretty soon. We're going to be running on the silicate gel batteries, and after that we're going to be running on these lithium batteries in this rack over here, showing you how the communication works. So right now it's set up as lead acid batteries, and so we have got 4 solar inputs, 4 red, 4 black, individual. This is the switch, the wires for the switch that wire into there. If you need a rapid shutdown, all you do is you put the rapid shutdown in series with these 2 wires. You pull this wire out over here and you put your rapid shutdown or your emergency stop switch outdoors in series with these wires. At the moment this circuit is broken, the inverter will shut off. Now, also pretty unique, most of the Solar Arcs and the Lux Powers and that have got a generator input which can be used as an input or an output, and then it's got a load 1 and a load 2 output. Now this particular unit has got a generator input, let me see if I can get in there closer, a generator input, a grid input, a load 1 output and a load 2 output. And you can program the load 1 and load 2 outputs. You're just going to switch a relay over here based on the state of charge of the battery. And here is a port to update the LCD display, and we can run Solar Assistant on this guy as well. At the moment we've got it Solar Man, the Wi-Fi module that comes with the unit, plugged in. We have the CTs connected in here as well. The CTs go in, following the wires over here. The CTs, hello Coco. The CTs go into this box over here, and perhaps we could show you how that works a bit later, but there's an arrow on the CTs. The arrow always points to the source of the power. So if it was generator, the arrow points towards generator. If it's utility, the arrow points to utility. And I've noticed on the forum a few people have got that wrong on other model inverters, wondering why it's not 0 exporting, because the CTs were installed the wrong way around. Then we've got a car charger over here, which can go up to 48 amps at 240 volts. 48 times 240 is 11,520 watts. So that charge controller can charge an EV at more than what this inverter can put out. Another important thing to note is that folks come along over here and try and put in, 4 gauge wire. These are 6 gauge wires. I'd say the 6 gauge is the most difficult to get in there. The 8 gauge is pretty simple. 8 gauge goes up to 50 amps. So you should be fine with 8 gauge. And 6 gauge will go in, just a little bit difficult to bend it. And so now what we're going to do is, with our silicate batteries, the whole time this inverter is running, it's super quiet. So what we're going to test first is this compressor over here. We're just going to plug that in, and you can see it's already sitting at 100 psi. So we're not starting at empty. The easiest start on a compressor is starting at empty. Okay, so we just plug it in there. And that runs fine. You want to see how many watts that is? We want to see how many watts that is. We just click on the little home button over there, and that'll show us. Hopefully we can see that over there. And when I plug it in, So you saw it pulled over 5,500 watts there to get started. So now what we're going to do is we're going to plug in this air compressor at the same time. We have a chop saw over here on the same phase. Okay, this is where many inverters kind of bomb out, and we're going to give that a try. And then we're going to try also with a locked rotor. We're going to jam the blade down over there, jam it down on the wood, and hit the start button and make the unit kind of lock the rotor and see if that trips the inverter as well. Now, as it's very hard to plug both things on at the same time and turn the switch, I've got it going to this breaker over here. And when I turn this breaker on, it should start the generator and the chop saw at the same time. Let me just zoom out a little bit. I'm going to get ready to turn this on. Okay. 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 So that was fine, starting up both. Let's keep that on there and see how many amps we do the same test over again. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is unplug the compressor, and this is pretty dangerous. I don't want to burn out my saw. Now we're going to jam the saw down hard. All right. I'm going to jam the saw down hard, and I'm going to flick the switch. You see the smoke coming out my machine over there, and that still didn't trip the inverter. Okay, very impressive. Okay, so the last test we're going to do is, or as far as the compressor and the chop saw goes, start the compressor and cut two pieces of wood at the same time. These pieces of wood are wet. They've come out of the snow. And I'm going to hit that button right now. Okay. Not too bad. Still no tripping. And that's all on the same phase. So the test we're going to do now is run some heat guns, because it's easy running a split phase unit. I mean, most guys, when they do a test, they run everything on 240 volts, balance the phases, but we're going to not balance the phases in this case. Okay, so as you can see over here, you can see the snow coming in here today, if you can see that. But we're going to plug this guy in over here. We've got one phase of L1 going to one set of plugs over there, and another phase L2 going to another set of plugs there. And then we've got these heat guns which each pull about 3,000 watts. All right. So what we're going to do is see how many heat guns we can turn on one phase and how long it takes before the unit trips. Okay. So I'm going to show this screen over here. We're going to turn the heat guns on. Yeah. Yeah. So we're pulling 11.5 kilowatts continuously, and there's no tripping on this unit. That's just amazing. Now, that's crazy. Let's see if we can overload this. What you'll notice as well is the reason why it's actually not overloading. It's pulling, I've told it to limit the battery. It's pulling 3.5 kilowatts from the grid over there. It was handling that overload while sharing from the grid at the same time. So if we put that load back on, so now the grid is turned off. You can see there. We're pulling 10 kilowatts right there. Let me see if I can overload it. That's no grid at all. 11.3 kilowatts, and we're still running without any grid power at all. There we go. And I'm sure we got overload fault right there. Alright, so you can touch on the overload over there. Shows the active alarms. There you can see, if you click on the side, you can see the historical alarms. And that's just running off these silicate gel batteries over here. that we have outside running in the cold weather. And now we're going to hook it up to lithium batteries. And setting up for lithium batteries is pretty simple. Now, within a short while, this should reset itself. Okay. So if we set it up for lithium batteries, we hit the little star button there, put in 5 ones, put OK, and I click on battery mode. It's set right now to lead acid. Let's set it to lithium. Okay, and we're going to set it to CAN bus protocol. And here we can set how many amps we want to charge or discharge power limit. So in other words, if we have got a single 5 kilowatt hour battery and we've got grid connected, we are going to limit it only to 45% of the maximum discharge, so we can kind of save our battery as well. And then we can set our charge current, and you'll notice that as we plug in this BMS cable, which we have over here, this BMS cable into the battery bank, you watch that charge current will change. So I'm going to click save over there. That's how we click save. All right, so I'm going to plug this guy over here into, and you'll notice as well, our lithium battery set, we don't have any communication wires between them, so we're just going to have one battery right now do the communication. So these batteries are not connected to the output at all, just a little plug. This is our battery rack over here. We have a 200 amp breaker built into it, and then it comes out on an Anderson plug on the side over there. So this is not even connected. All we're doing is just testing the communications. We're going to stick this into the CAN bus because we told it CAN communications, and we're going to turn this guy on. All right, and what's cool about these batteries is that you can program the protocols right there. So we're going to tell it, and what's cool is you can actually run an inverter off the RS485 port on a different protocol than you can on the CAN port. So you can have 2 separate inverters reading different protocols running off different ports on these batteries. So we're going to set it to CAN bus, and Pylon Tech works just great. And we push enter over there, and it says set OK. You see it's still showing overload from the previous time over there. So what we're going to have to do is switch off the solar on the side, turn the unit off over there, and let it restart, and then we can turn it back on again in a few seconds. Okay, it's restarted. Click the switch back on the side, turn the solar back on, and away we go. So much glare here today, I apologize. Okay, it's telling us that the BMS comms fail. Give it some time. And there, the BMS comms light has disappeared, so we know it's communicating. And the way to test that, we can unplug this wire over here on the CAN bus, and then within a few seconds we'll see right there, it'll say BMS comms failed again. If you leave it off for long enough, the inverter will actually shut down because it does need communication. All right, so I'm going to plug it back in, the CAN bus port over there. Now, if we had to link these batteries all together, which we should do next, is the inverter will know that this battery is limited to 100 amps charging and discharging. Once we start plugging in more, it will start adding up. So it'll say the charge in amps can go out to 200 amps, and then the third one 300 amps, 400 amps, 500 amps, and so on. So a little word on these silica gel batteries: they can be paralleled with lithium batteries, no problem. Now, your lithium battery is a digital battery. So what it means by a digital battery is, if you exceed, let's get the snow off here, you need an equalizer. There's the equalizer over there. If you exceed, let's say 100 amps on a single battery in that rack over there, the batteries will cut out. Now, these analog batteries over here will give you everything they have: 100 amps, 200 amps, 300 amps. So it's good, in my experience, it's good to parallel these silica gel batteries with your lithium batteries. They have exactly the same voltage range, as a 16S battery, which most of these lithium batteries are. There are a few 15S and 14S batteries out there which have got a lower charging voltage. So these are perfectly compatible with a 16S battery. Now, in addressing batteries on CAN bus, I've already showed you how to set the protocol I did for this one. So the first dip switch has to be all zeros, the second one 1 on, the third one 2 on, just like in binary, it's in the manual, 2 on, the third one 3 on, and the fourth one 4 on. Okay, just typical binary. Sorry, the last one's got to be on over there. Okay, now if when I hook up this one into there, you'll notice that the charging amps should be able to change almost straight away. So this is the screen where you can see the battery parameters. Click on battery over there. It'll tell you what the maximum charging current is. So for one battery, it's 120 amps. Right now we can see we've got one battery connected and we've got the cable disconnected. So I'm going to just connect two batteries together and we're going to see what happens over there. It's 120, and the moment it reads it now, jump to 240. Now plug in the third one there. So you see it automatically figures what the charge is. It knows what the state of charge is. And we plugged in 3 right now. There you go, 360 amps. Let's plug in a fourth one. So this is why BMS communication is pretty important, because it's going to read from the BMS how many amps it can charge and discharge with. Right now it's 480 amps. So that's the maximum capacity that it knows that it can charge and discharge at. Even though this inverter can only do 190 amps maximum, at least it knows what the capacity is. It knows what the state of charge of the batteries are. It sees how many amps are going in charging the battery right now. Now we don't have this battery connected like I showed you. So these are the amps coming from the solar right now while it's busy snowing. So we're getting about 1,600 watts from the snow. And so what we're going to do next is a electric car charging test. So a cool thing we do with this inverter out here is we charge our forklift batteries right here. Okay, so this is how we do it. First of all, I'm going to turn the solar off. I don't like disconnecting the battery while the unit's busy charging with solar or so on. So now it's gone to a nice quiet hum. And we unplug the Anderson connect. Plug in the Anderson connector to our forklift. You'll see the unit wakes up straight away. And then we set the battery type. And you notice there's no AC power. And it's telling me the BMS comms fail because we just started up. But it's also, this is not a lithium battery. So we just go to battery type, 5 ones. 5 ones over there. Click OK. We go to battery type. We set that to lead acid. We click save, and then we can set our parameters as well, what voltage we want to set it at, and how many amps you want to charge at, etc., etc. That's all fine by me. And then the comms fail will disappear. We turn on the solar, and then immediately it will take whatever little bit of sun there is today, with it being snowing, if we're lucky. Right now, with the snow falling down, we have 1.1 kilowatts going into our forklift battery, which is 82%. And I will say the lead acid is not as accurate as the lithium. Lead acid is only based on the voltage coming on, so when you put a load on the batteries, the percentage will fall based on the voltage on the battery. So that is pretty much one negative thing with lead acid batteries. Probably need a smart shunt to show you exactly what percentage is going on in the batteries. That's how we use this unit outdoors to charge our forklift. Probably the biggest beauty about owning an electric vehicle is people say, wow, electric vehicles, the time isn't right. But I tell you what, you show me a gas car that can get miles just by parking underneath some solar panels in the sun. So this is a 15 kilowatt array, and the weather is pretty bad today, snowy. So what I'm going to do is we're going to charge off the batteries over here. Those are silicate gel batteries, the 12 kilowatt hours, and we have plugged up some supplemental batteries as well, because I'm not going to drain these poor little guys down 12 kilowatt hours. So I like to connect lithium batteries in parallel with my lithium ion batteries. My lithium batteries have to be out of the cold, so I have a few of those stacked away inside the garage over there. But these guys over here are out in the cold, and they don't trip for anything. There's no all I have is a 200 amp breaker on there, sitting there in the snow, and these guys go down to minus 40 degrees. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set, right now we're pulling in 2.3 kilowatts from our solar in the snow today, which is pretty amazing. And that's what it looks like over there. And I'm going to set the charge controller to 40 amps. Okay. Take my charger over here. You just zoom out a bit. Plug that in there. Okay. Busy charging. Let's see what happens. Oops. So the battery's charged to 95%, and I've told it at home charging not to charge more than 95%. So what I'm going to do is set that quickly to 100%. One-time charge level, and I'll set that up to 100% right now. Okay. And now we're busy charging at 39 amps. Just over 9 kilowatts. Charging our vehicle. Okay. So that's the amazing part of having, if you're living in the desert or off-grid completely, you could put up a solar awning or have enough solar panels so that you would never have to go to the gas station. And that's the case over here with this Lightning. We just love this thing. We love our inverter over here. Let's see how it's busy running. This is running now at 9 kilowatts. It's still very, very quiet. I mean, I can talk, I'm whispering next to you. This thing's fan is whispering away over here. And it's just amazingly quiet. And there's the output right now. You can see it's about 4.5 kilowatts per leg. And that'll just charge there all day long, especially when the sun is shining. The sun is shining from the awning. We get 15 kilowatts coming in, and we can just have 8 or 9 kilowatts going out. It's just an amazing time to be alive. 94% range, 289 miles, or 94% battery charge, 289 miles. We're charging at 9 kilowatts. Here are our 2 indoor units we use in the warehouse and the business. They've been running here also since before June, about May, running the 2 of them in parallel. They're each running split phase and sharing the load. So in the basement, have one of these, and I'm using the output over there, which is programmable, to run my electric hot water. So I have a gas hot water heater, and when the battery gets pretty much full, then the output gets switched to there, which turns on the electric pre-hot water. And maybe I can run down there and show how that works, how to run hot water and how to use that auxiliary load. I don't think many people know how to use that auxiliary load, or if they do in the Solar Arc doesn't. You either have to use that for the generator input or the auxiliary, so you're kind of screwed. Whereas this you can use. You've got 4 inputs, like I said. You've got generator, utility, load, 1 output, which is load, all the way through from 0 to 100% of the battery, and the other one is programmable depending on the battery percentage. Now, these units, we use them to feed back to grid. So the units in the shop, if the batteries are full, they feed back to the grid in the house, and the house pulls that extra energy off and feeds that to the batteries, and we don't feed any power back to the grid at all. So that energy just comes in from the shop to the house over the AC wire, and from that inverter inside, basically charging the batteries. Then you've also got your rule 21 in here as well. You could set, for example, in the parameters, you can set on the grid over there. And this is split phase right now, where the high voltage is, where the low voltage is. You can click grid protect parameters. So if the voltage goes too high, if you're feeding back too hard or something in your system, it can shut down. Then also you can go via frequency as well. So So the inverter indoors, if the battery is full, it will just adjust the frequency up to 60.5 hertz, and that will stop this set of inverters feeding back power to the one indoors. And pretty awesome. So that is a portion. And then as far as generator goes, you can have charge enable, manual start stop, a whole lot of different parameters, and you can have auto start stop. There's your firmware version. Here you can set your timeout for your LED, your backlight, and the percentage, etc. So just to run through the screens quickly, we have this at the moment in peak shift, and that's the maximum it can export is 2,300 watts for this one, and I've got that also set to 2,600 watts, so about 5,000 watts export maximum in the evening. And I've got my export set and my PV type. You can set it to independent, parallel, so or constant voltage, depending on if you're using optimizers. Some of them want to run at constant voltage, otherwise I run them independently or parallel. If you've got a whole lot of strings together, you want to run it parallel. You can just see which one's going to give you the best output. There's arc enable, then the time, and then this is the peak shift time, which I showed earlier. And so what happens over here at 6 o'clock at night, I start feeding back about 5 kilowatts now in the winter time to the house to offset loads and that over there. And the second menu is you can enable parallel. This is the slave common grid CT, so I've only got one CT on the master, and the slave is getting its information from the master CT. If you want three-phase operation, you could set it to which phase it's on, okay? And the CT ratio, charge, discharge current. In other words, if you don't want to over discharge your batteries at any particular point, you can set the maximum limit for discharging amps. It says 60 amps at this stage. 60 times 50 volts is about 3 kilowatts per unit, so that's 6 kilowatts in total. And if we pull any more than that, then it's going to supplement from the grid, if the grid is available. If the grid's not available, this will be ignored. It'll just give all it can until the batteries cannot anymore. This we've been through already. Lithium, you can see the lead acid parameters or the lithium parameters. Okay, the grid I've showed you before. You can do US 208 volts as well. That's 120 degrees between phases. That's 180 degrees between phases. So that'll give you 208 volts between hot 1 and hot 2, and that's 240 volts. Single phase is for European countries, or if you just want 240 volts as a single phase unit, you can do that as well. It also does the Japanese. You can set the different grid standards over here, and you can also set your reactive power parameters, which I'm not too familiar with these, haven't spent any much time with these. And you got your anti-island, all the different things that protection parameters you can set in there as well. And you can also do all your grid functions with voltage, frequency, etc., power factor, correction, and then we're back at the main menu. Then the generator charging, I've showed you that already before, and this over here is the firmware version, and if you click one more side to the left, you get backlight enable, and that's the home screen. The home screen, if you click on the home screen, you'll see what the voltages are coming from each. It's snowing today. You can see how much energy we pulled today from the solar. And the next one is the battery. We can see how many amps are going to the battery for this one. We can see what's happening inside the inverter with the bus voltage and the system state, etc. And the standby current on this, it draws. So this is our gas heater over there, and we have an electric heater, and then we have a hybrid heater. So what happens is when the battery is fully charged, then we supply power to these electric water heaters that heat up the water before the gas. So that's what that auxiliary load can be used for. It's snowing outside today, so that's why those batteries are nowhere near charged. So that's why no energy is going to charge or going to heat up the electric hot water system.